Hi, my name is Jared Platt, and I am a commercial wedding and portrait photographer from Phoenix, Arizona. I basically photograph people, and I've been using Lightroom for a very long time, since the very beginning of Lightroom, back when it was just a beta, and I think a baby or a beta, back in, I think it was 2005. But over the past 5 years, Lightroom has really come into its own, and it's really started to create some amazing connection points. And that's all a result of the Creative Cloud. So Adobe, when it introduced the Creative Cloud, it introduced it in order to start connecting photographers to other people and to other photographers. Mostly in the beginning, it was just to park some files up there. But Lightroom started using it, and it's been using it in amazing ways. And so I'm going to show you how Lightroom, along with the Creative Cloud, allows you to share your images in some really cool ways. And we're going to go through all of those ways here today. So let's start off by showing you how Lightroom connects to the Creative Cloud. And in this class, we're going to be mostly talking about Lightroom Classic, although Lightroom Desktop, which is the newer version of Lightroom, and Lightroom Mobile, which is what you find on your lap or on your phone or on your iPad, or even Lightroom Web. All of those are part of what we call the Lightroom ecosystem. And all of them are tied into the Creative Cloud in one way or another. But Lightroom Classic is fairly unique in the way it ties into the Creative Cloud. So we'll start there, and then I'll mention some things about Lightroom Desktop and Lightroom Web and Lightroom Mobile, and how they all tie in together. But it's important to understand how we, with Lightroom Classic, tie into the Creative Cloud. I want you to understand that everything that you put in to Lightroom, if you do it on your iPhone, if you do it on your iPad, on some other kind of mobile device, or if you do it on Lightroom Web, all of those will send the entire original file. So if it's a 30 megapixel raw file, the entire 30 megapixel raw file will go into the cloud. And that's the relationship that Lightroom Mobile, Lightroom Web, and Lightroom Desktop, the new version of Lightroom, that's the relationship they have with the Creative Cloud and with the ability to park your files up in the cloud. Lightroom Classic has a bit of a different relationship with them. So that's why we're going to start there, because it's much easier to understand the relationship that the other versions of Lightroom in the ecosystem have with Lightroom and the Creative Cloud. So let's start inside of Lightroom Classic. And I'm looking at a portrait session here inside of Lightroom Classic. And this portrait session is being shown to you from a collection. So collections are down in the bottom right or left-hand corner of Lightroom Classic. And I've sorted in my collections to find all of the collections that have LRS in them, and that's for Lightroom Summit. Since we're watching the Lightroom Summit right now, these are all of the collections that I'm going to use here today. But this is a good lesson for you. If you know what collection you're looking for, you can always search for it right here in the collections area. So I'm in the collection searching for a portrait session, and that's this portrait session, the family portrait of the days. And so I'm really excited about this portrait session. I really like it. Beautiful family. And I'm going to share this with that family. So the first thing I need to do is put it into a collection. Now I already have it in the collection down here, but I'm going to show you how we make a collection. The first thing we do is we highlight all of the images that we want to put in the collection. So I went and hit Command or Control A, and I collected all the images that are going to go into this collection. And then I got over here to the collections area and clicked on the plus button and hit Create a Collection. Now, if you want, you can create a collection set, which is just a folder, and then you can start putting collections in there. And you can see that I've done this over here. It says from Lightroom Mobile, there is a folder there, and then I've got some collections in that folder. So I'm going to just create a collection. And when I create that collection, it's going to give me a dialog box that allows me to name the collection. I can name it whatever I want. I can put it inside of any of my folders. And then I can include the selected photos. So it's going to take all of those images and put them into that for me. I can also, if I want to, make new versions of those photos without duplicating them, just make new versions without causing extra space to be used. I can make virtual copies of those, but we're not going to do that right now. And then I can also set that as a target collection. So if later I want to start adding images to it very easily, if I set it as the target collection, all I have to do is click on any image and hit the B key. That's B for boy, this is a great image. And that will allow me to just throw images into that particular collection. But we're not going to do that right now either. But what we are going to do is we're going to synchronize that with Lightroom. And this is very important. We want to synchronize our files with Lightroom. And then I'm going to hit create. Now I've already done that, so we don't necessarily have to. And you'll see down here in the collections area, if I search for LRS, all of my Lightroom Summit files come up here, and you'll see that this is how I created this family portrait of the days. Now, you'll notice that there is a little sideways lightning bolt over here on the left-hand side. That means that the collection is tied into the Creative Cloud. And so it is synchronized with Lightroom's ecosystem. And if you see just a box here, so for instance, let's see on this telling story one, which is 39 photos, if I click on that little lightning bolt, it turns off the synchronization to the cloud. It's going to ask me and confirm if I really want to do that. Yeah, I'm going to stop synchronizing. And now you'll notice that there's a little box there. Instead of a sideways lightning bolt, there is a little box. That means it is not synchronized. If I want to synchronize it, I simply click on that box, and now the lightning bolt is there, and it is synchronized with the cloud. So that's how we take images from Lightroom Classic and put them on the cloud. Because remember, the other versions of Lightroom, Lightroom Desktop, Lightroom Mobile, Lightroom Web, they all add everything to the cloud. No matter what you put into them, all of it goes up to the cloud. Lightroom Classic is different because it only puts stuff in the cloud that you want in the cloud. And so you do that through collections. Okay, so now that we've done that through a collection, I want to show you how we can share those images. Once they're shared to the cloud, they're up there. And what it's done, Lightroom Classic, instead of sending the entire raw file up to the cloud, it makes what we call a smart preview. And that smart preview is a raw image, but it's going up to the cloud and it's able to be utilized in the cloud as a raw image. It's smaller, so it's about 2,000 or so pixels big, and it's a great file. It can be printed probably up to about an 8x10 without any problem. It can be downloaded as JPEG and give people a decent sized file. It can also be shared either on social media or a website. So it can be broadcast. It can make websites. It can make blogs. And so that's a really useful file that's up there in the cloud, but it's still raw. So it's still a really good file type. So that's what's up there in the cloud. We might as well use it. So what we're going to do then is we're going to go to this collection and we're going to right click it. And when we right click this collection, you'll see that there's an area that says Lightroom Links. And in the Lightroom links, you'll see that there is an option to make the collection public. Right now, it's on the web, but no one can see it. But if I click Make Collection Public, it is now going to be a public area on the web. Now, you still have to give somebody the link to it, but it is available for the public to see if I share that link. Then I'm going to right-click that same collection again, and I'm going to go to Lightroom Links. And now I'm going to view it on the web. And by the way, you can see that I can turn it to private anytime I want, and that's going to turn it off of that public viewable. So it will literally just disappear to the public, only be available to me. So I'm going to click on View on the Web, and it's going to open up this particular collection in Lightroom on the web. And so now we are looking at Lightroom Web. So this is the web portal to my entire Lightroom collection that has been shared. It's not my entire catalog because I haven't shared the whole catalog to the cloud. It's just every collection that I have shared. And you'll notice that one of these is called LRS, Family Portraits, the Days. So there they are. Now, what I want to do is I want to be able to share these with the client. And so instead of just exporting a bunch of JPEGs and then going to some other website and uploading them to that website that has no connection to my Lightroom catalog, and then letting them choose the images from there, and then having to write down all their selections and then come back to Lightroom and find those images and start selecting those images. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share them to the family through a proofing website that is connected into my Lightroom catalog. And so I'm going to go down to the bottom of this area. So there's a grid here, and in that grid I have many options on how I want to see these files. And so I can look at them in a kind of a beautiful grid. I can look at them in a square grid like this where I've got more information on them. Notice that it's got the stars and flags on it. But I can also click on this little painter icon, and that's for creating a website. But we'll talk about that in a minute. I want to talk about proofing first. So the first thing we're going to do is proof these images to the client. So I'm going to click on this proofing button here. And when I click on it, you'll see that it says there's nothing here right now. That's okay, because I got to go up to the top right-hand corner where there's this little icon with a person and a plus. And when I click on that icon, it asks me if I want to enable proofing. And yes, I want to enable proofing. So now it's going to start giving me some options about proofing. And those options are, I can copy the link, and I can limit the selection of the photos to a certain number. So let's say that you've told your client that you can only pick 5 images. You've paid for 5 images to be retouched. Great. So let's add 5 in there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so now they can choose, by looking at this website, they can choose up to 5 photos that I will retouch, and then we'll print those photos. You don't have to put a limit on this. I'm just saying that that's a possibility, and we're going to go with that possibility. Okay, so now I'm going to copy this link, and I'm going to send that link to my client. So let me just hit a new tab here, and let me just paste in that link that you would send to your client. And this is what your client's going to see, just like that. And they can go through and either look at the grid, or they can go through and look at the individual images. So if they click on that, it becomes a full-size image. They can look at them, they can scroll through the images and find the ones they like the most. That one looks great. And so they're going to choose that one by clicking either down here on the left-hand side with that little checkbox, or they can go up here to the right-hand side and they can click up here on this checkbox. So either way, so I'm going to click on that, and that has, noticed it says 1 of 5 photos selected. So now I have 1 of those 5 photos selected, and I can also go down to the bottom here and leave a comment. Now, keep in mind that all of this requires them to log in. I'm already logged in as me, so no problem. But they have to log in, and they can either log in through Google or Facebook or some other method of logging in, or they can create a free Adobe ID. So either way, they can log in. Once they've logged in, it will know who they are based on their email address and their name that they put in. And so now you'll know who's selecting what. So 50 different people could log in, and they could all choose 5 photos, and you'd get to see the number of photos that they chose and which ones they chose. So I'm going to leave a comment now, and I'm going to say, please make sure that the blemishes are removed. I don't know if they have any blemishes, but I'm going to post that comment. So your client posts a comment here, and you're going to be able to see that comment. You're also going to be able to see which images they chose. So now let's hit this X button. And by the way, you can also hit the info button, and it will show you the information about that photograph as well. But let's hit the X button and back out of here, and you can see now that there's a blue checkbox anywhere that they've chosen one. So now I'm going to go through and I'm just going to click on a couple other images. So like I really like this image. So they're able to select them down here in the grid view as well. But I'm going to just select a couple more images. Notice that it's saying 3 of 5 now. And I'm going to keep going, and we're going to take another one. That's 4 of 5. And then, oh, there's one way down here that I really like. And so I'm going to choose, let's see, this one, I believe. Let's double check that. That one looks like a spaceship is coming. There, I like that one. And so this one I'm going to select, and boom, now it's 5 out of 5. So if I go back to the grid and I select another one, it won't let me do anything. So it's locked me out of selecting any more images if I've chosen to only let them have 5, which is great. So now I have done all my selections. The client is going to leave the website. They don't have to save anything. All they do is just close it down. Now, when I come back here to my version of that site, and let me just go back to Lightroom Classic for a minute. So what I would do then is if they called me and said, hey, and by the way, as they're making those selections, I'm going to be able to look on my phone and I'm going to get an alert from Lightroom on my phone that says your client has selected an image. Your client has selected an image. So I'm going to see all the selections coming in here if I choose to have that alert on my phone. So that's pretty cool too. So I know that the client's selecting images, but when the client's done, they'll probably call or email me. And at that point, I'll just go back into Lightroom Classic and I'll right-click that collection and I'll go down to the Lightroom links and I'll view it on my website. So I'm going to click it, view it on the web. It's going to open up that particular collection for me. And once it's opened up that collection for me, I'm going to go to the proofing area, that same button right down here, the proofing area. I'm going to click on it and it's going to take me to a collection, and now it's going to show me the images that they've chosen. There they are. Those are the 5 images that they wanted. Perfect. Now I know where they are. I want to then add them to a collection. So I don't want to have to look and see, okay, what's this number? What is the number of this photo? Go into the info area of this photo, grab the image number, then go look for it. That's a waste of my time. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look here. I'm going to click on this little checkbox in the top right-hand corner of each image. So I click on the first one, and then I just simply hold the Shift key down and click on the last one, and it selects all of the images from top to bottom. And I could do this with 50 or 100 images if I would like. And then I'm going to click on this little Add To icon right here. So when I click on Add To, it's going to ask me where I want to add it. And I can create a brand new catalog or collection, or I can go and find a collection that I already have. Well, I'm going to create a brand new one, and we're going to call this Lightroom Summit LRS Day Family Selections. And I'm going to create the album. So Lightroom Web has just created an album from their selections, and that album is going to synchronize right back to Lightroom Classic, as well as to my phone, as well as to my iPad and all other iterations of Lightroom. And now when I come back to Lightroom Classic, in the collections area, you'll see that there is an LRS Day Family Selections, and all of our images that our client selected on their portal is now right here inside of Lightroom Classic, where I can do some editing on them, and then I can print them out, I can share them, I can do whatever it is that I'm going to do to deliver those images. So it's that simple to share out to your client and get feedback. Now, I'm going to go one further. So for those of you who are commercial photographers, so that was a great way for people who do portraits, especially if you don't have some kind of a sharing site like SmugMug or Pixieset or one of those types of things. This is a really great, and it's part of your Lightroom ecosystem. So you already have the ability. You don't need to go out and buy a website, a proofing system or anything like that in order to get client feedback. You just have it. So for those of you who are portrait photographers, even wedding photographers, you could use this, especially if you're not doing a ton of wedding photography or portrait. You're doing it on the side, you're doing it, occasionally you do it. It's a weekend kind of job for you. This is a great way to do it because there's no reason to spend a whole bunch of money on extra services when you can just do it straight out of Lightroom. And so this is a great way to do that. But I'm going to go even further. For those of you who are doing tethered photographic shoots, you're commercial photographers, and you have clients that are no longer sitting with you. Maybe you're in Arizona and they're in New York, or maybe they just don't want to come to the studio and you're shooting some tabletop stuff. There's no reason for them to come. They want to sit back at their studio or at their office and do their work, but they want to check in on you and see how things are going and make some comments. You have an art director that wants to peek in on the photo shoot. Great. What you're going to do is you're going to go into Lightroom Classic and you're going to go to the File menu and you're going to go to Tethered Capture and start tethered capturing. And when you do that, you're going to go to the dialog box here and you're going to name the session. And you're going to do, whatever template naming you want to do. And I suggest that you always stay with the file name, just so that it doesn't have to change. And then, because you want the file name on the camera to be the same as the file name that comes in. I know some of you might want to change that. I prefer to have it the same across the board until I choose to change it. Then I'm going to choose the destination. But after I've chosen the destination, I'm going to add it to a collection. When I add it to a collection, I can add it to any existing collection, or I can create a new collection. And when I create the new collection, look at the options I have. I have the option to name the collection, to put it in a folder. I also have the option to synchronize that folder with Lightroom. And when I synchronize that with Lightroom and hit create, it's going to create a collection that is synchronized with Lightroom. So that means that every time I take a picture, that picture is going to go into the collection, and then that collection is going to be shared with the cloud. So every image that I shoot is going to go into the cloud. And if I simply go to that collection, so I'm canceling out of here because we don't necessarily need to do this to prove this concept. I can then go and right-click that collection, go to Lightroom's links, make the collection public. And once I've made the collection public, I do the same thing. I go in, right-click it again. Actually, let's do it to this telling a story. So let's just say that I'm doing a photo shoot here, and there's a commercial photo shoot, and I right-click it, and I go to Lightroom links, and I make it public. And this is before I ever even start shooting. I can do this. Make the collection. From my tethered session, make the collection, tell it to synchronize it with Lightroom Mobile, and then I come in here, right-click it, make it public, and then view it on the web. Once I'm in here, I'm going to simply go into the proofing, and I'm going to click on that little link, and I'm going to enable proofing, and I'm going to copy that link, and I'm going to send it to my art director. And then my art director at any point during the day can go in and look at how the session is going and kind of move around and look at things and flag things while they're working. So I will actually be able to see what the client is interested in. I'll be able to talk to them about it. They'll be able to see exactly what's going on. And by the time the photo shoot is over, if they've been peeking in, we might actually have all the selections done before we ever even leave the studio that day. So then I know exactly what to work on because the client was able to choose them as I was shooting. So that's another way that you can use this amazing concept of sharing through Lightroom, through collections, through the Lightroom ecosystem through Lightroom Web. So that's another way to do it. So we've already talked about sharing it with a portrait client after the fact. Now we've talked about sharing it with an art director during the actual photo shoot. And now we're going to talk about going a step further, and we're going to make a website. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell a little story here. So I like to play dolls. And the way I play dolls with my daughter is I simply give her the art direction role. So she gets to choose what we're going to photograph and what the story is. And then I am the photographer and the lighting expert. And so we go out and play dolls. And we set up a circumstance, and she sets up the cute little situation, and I help to art direct it a little bit and tell her I think this would look nice and this would be a good angle, and we kind of set it up and have fun with it. And then I light it, and then we take it. And there's really not much more fun thing you can do than take a shot, say like this one, and turn it into a bright summer day. Or take a shot like this one, where it's just next to a fireplace, a doll, and turn it into a s'more cooking campout. These are just super fun. It was a lot of fun to do this one here. This is what it looked like before we shot, and this is what it looked like after we shot. So we just had a lot of fun, and my daughter was super amazed with all the amazing effects that we were doing with lighting. And so I'm going to tell that story in a little website. So I'm going to select all of my images and I'm going to put them into a collection, which I've already done, again, just by clicking that plus button and creating a collection. I was able to add these to a collection, and you see by the sideways lightning bolt that it is connected to the cloud. Now, you notice that I just synchronized that with Lightroom, and I made it public. So I made this a public link. So right now it says make collection private. So it is now, right now it's public. And I'm going to view this on the web. So when I go to view this on the web, it's going to take me to Lightroom Mobile or to Lightroom Web, and it's going to show me that collection. But I'm going to, instead of going to the proofing site, which I did before, down here on the bottom left, I'm going to go to the little artist link. So you see that little palette there? That link takes me to an already pre-built website. It's ready to go. So now all I need to do is stylize it a little bit. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to name this, and I don't necessarily want to name it 002 LR telling a story. I want it to just say playing dolls. So I'm going to go down to the bottom here where there's this little control box that says theme on it. And the first thing I get to choose is the way that the photos are laid out. So I can do them one at a time, like kind of blog style, or I can do them in a side by side like this. And as we get to vertical ones, it'll actually change them. Like you can see that once you get a vertical, it kind of changes the ratio there, which it still looks nice. But I actually prefer this smaller version here, the kind of masonry style. So we'll stick with masonry style, and I'm going to turn the appearance to light because that's the way my website looks, and so I want it to kind of match that. And then I'm going to click on this little up button here, and it's going to give me the option to show the title, and I can rename it. So I'm going to say Playing Dolls. And then I'm going to say Photos by Jared and Indiana Platt. So I've got the author and I've got the title. And then I can also choose to have a cover image. So I'm going to, if I click on use a cover image and use it as a background, you'll notice that there's some kind of an image in the background there, which looks all right because it's like kind of just shapes. But if it was a person or something like that, it wouldn't look all that good. So I'm going to actually choose to make a hero image, and it's going to put it up here at the top. And I've chosen a specific image, and so it likes that. It's random that it chose this image, but I can actually choose which image I want to use for this cover. So I can do that just simply by going in and clicking on an image. And I like the image it's chosen, but if I wanted to choose a different one, I would simply click on this little checkbox, and then I would go up to the top and say set as cover right there. And then that would change the top. But I want this one here to be the cover. So that's the one that actually is the cover. I'm going to set it as the cover. And so now this is the cover. And if I want to reposition that, I simply go up to the top right-hand corner of this image and click on that little image icon. And now it gives me a repositioning option. And so I'm just going to kind of reposition this until it looks right. And then I'm going to hit apply. There we go. So I've got a banner image. I've got my title that says Playing with Dolls, and then it says buy photos. Buy photos. That's not good. So I need to go back down here and change this to there. That's better, by Jared and Indiana Platt. Okay, because it's automatically putting the by in there, so you don't want to put that also. So Playing Dolls by Jared and Indiana Platt. Now I can click on the edit button and I can write a story. So I'm not going to spend too much time, writing the story out. I would normally just, write a story in, say, Word and copy it and paste it here. But I'm just going to write a little sentence that says, I love to play dolls, ... with my daughter. She acts as the art director, and I am, and I gotta spell director right. I am the photographer. And let's spell director correctly, and done. So notice that now I have text in there, and I can keep editing this to my heart's delight. I can add more paragraphs. I can also come in and see where these little plus buttons are. So if you look here, I'm dividing up things. And so I'm just going to look for areas to divide images. So I'm going to divide here. So those are 3 images that go together. I'm going to divide here. Those 2 images go together. I'm going to divide this one, and those 4 images go together. And if I want one of them to be the hero image, I'll click again, and now I've got these 3 images here, and then I've got a hero image there. And so I can kind of divide up these images however I like them. And so I'm creating basically sections of images. If I just want an image, there we go. I've got just a full image there. This image here actually needs to go up with those other dog photos. So I'm going to grab it and drag it up. Come back right there. And I'm just going to put it inside those other photos. So I'm dragging those around. And then I'm going to separate those, and I'm going to make that a hero image. And then I'm going to, we'll leave that one as a hero image too. And then we've got that one separated. And then this one needs to actually come over here next to this one. There. And then we'll separate these 2. And then we'll separate this one to a hero image. And we'll separate this one out in its own. And then we'll put this one. And each one of these I intend to tell a little story about it. So here we go with Indy and her mom. And then this is their Christmas time photo. And then this is my favorite set of images here. So we shaded everybody and then we relit them. So this is shaded, and then we added the light to come back in so that it would be a softer version of the sun. And then we added a background here of sky. And so I'm going to make that the hero image at the bottom. And then between each one of these settings, I can talk about how we created them. In this instance, as with many of the others, we shaded and then relit our photo. This is the best way to create the appearance of sun without having, without having the harsh lighting conditions that the sun usually brings. There we go. So I would tell a story about how we created these photos, and I can, anywhere I see that edit button, I can add text or I can add a heading. And so once I'm done with that, I don't need to save it. It's already available. And all I have to do is go up to this little plus button. It's the same thing as the proofing site, but I click on there and copy this link. Now I can copy the link or I can copy the embed code. And if I copy the embed code, I can simply embed it into another website, which is really cool if you already have a website. Because if you share this, you're sharing people a adobe.ly/blah, blah, blah link, which isn't so cool. I don't really like that, and I wish there was a way to customize that. But since there isn't, you can embed it into your website, and when people go in and click on it, then they can utilize that. And if you don't know how to use an embed code, that's a lesson for a whole nother day. But suffice it to say, if you're just showing photos to people, you're not necessarily doing like a professional photo site, this is a great way to share images. They're always there. They'll always be up there as long as you keep the site public. So I just copy that, and then I'm going to send it to, say, Indy's grandmother, and she's going to open up, and this is what she's going to see. Playing with dolls, and then she's going to see this beautiful little website that we created in just mere moments. And it's using the images from the web that I put up there when I first instituted the collection. They were already there, so it's not like I had to upload them. I didn't have to do anything special. All I did was just right-click it, turn it on, and then go to the website and edit it. So that's another way that you can share your images with the outside world right from Lightroom. And it's a fantastic way to go. But there's another way. And remember, I told you that this way is not quite as personal because it doesn't have a URL link that's specific to you. Like, for instance, for me, jaredplatt.com or jaredplatt.us, something like that. So I would prefer to share my images on some kind of a web page that I own rather than something that says adobe.ly. That's my preference. It's not necessary, especially if you're doing it for just your personal interest. You can certainly send it out to people and they can just bookmark that link. But there's a completely other way that we can share these images, and it's in an actual full-blown stylized website that has your name on it. And guess what? You already own one. And I'm not talking about the website that you already currently own and that you pay a bunch of money for. I'm talking about every user of Adobe Lightroom that pays for a Creative Cloud subscription already has a perfectly good website available to them. And it's called Portfolio. So Adobe Portfolio is a website fully functional. All you got to do is build it. All you got to do is say, yes, please. And it's yours. So let's go and show you how to do that. First, let's go to Lightroom and let's choose I collected a bunch of images in an online portfolio here. So this is my collection from Lightroom over the course of many years of some of my favorite images. So I'm going to just call this my favorite portfolio work. Okay? So I've put them into a collection here on the left-hand side. It's called LRS Online Portfolio, and I'm going to right-click it, and I'm going to make this collection public. And then I'm going to go to that Lightroom link. So I'm going to go view it on the web. It's going to take me to the online version of that collection. And once I'm there, I want to just simply share this entire collection. So I'm going to go over to the top right-hand corner where these triple dot buttons are. And when I click on that, there's one area that says Send to Portfolio. So my Lightroom web version of Lightroom, not Lightroom Classic, but Lightroom Web, once I get to Lightroom Web, this is connected to my portfolio, and I'm going to simply send it to my portfolio. So I click on Send to Portfolio, and it's going to ask me, do you really want to send this? Yes, I do. So I'm going to hit Continue, and it's sharing it right now. It's making a connection, and it's taking all of those images that were inside of Lightroom as raw images, and it's creating a JPEG, and it's putting them onto my portfolio as we speak. And if I wanted to do nothing else, I could walk away and it would already be in my portfolio and people could be looking at it. All I have to do is hit publish. That's how easy it is to do this. But I'm going to show you how to go in and play around with Adobe Portfolio just a little bit once this has finished sharing. So let's go to Adobe Portfolio, and it's taking me to my website. And notice that I can actually have multiple websites here. I've got, on the left-hand side, you see that I've got jaredplatt.us. That is a customized URL. How did I get that? I simply went to GoDaddy.com and I paid for a URL. I didn't pay for a website because I already have the website here. So Lightroom, through the Creative Cloud, through Adobe, portfolio.adobe.com, they have given you a website. So it's hosted on Adobe. So then you simply go to GoDaddy and buy the URL, which is between $3 and $12 a year. And then you point that to Adobe. And that's what I've done here is I pointed my jaredplatt.us to my Adobe server. And it's very easy to do. It's in the settings inside of Adobe Portfolio. And it's we don't have a lot of time here to discuss that. But if you purchase the course, there is a downloadable PDF, and I have given you the steps inside of the downloadable PDF as to how to go to GoDaddy, what to look for, and then where to go inside of your portfolio site in order to connect the two. It's very easy. It's not difficult. If you're watching this a year or two later, it might change a little bit, but essentially the ideas are the same. So just go to GoDaddy, buy a URL, point it to Adobe, and now you'll have a customized website URL, and you can customize the website. So what we're going to do is edit this site. Now you'll notice if you don't want to pay for a URL, you don't have to, because there's another option, and that's just to name it plattphotography.myportfolio.com. And that's actually pretty customizable. And so all you're doing is adding your name in front of .myportfolio.com. And so you could send people there, and that's free to you. I mean, obviously you have to be paying for a Lightroom subscription, but if you're paying for Lightroom as a subscription, that's free to you. And so that's a really great option as well. So I'm going to edit my site. I'm going to jaredplatt.us, and I'm going to go, so this is the home page, and you can see that there's a top navigation bar, and there's a little bit of information down here with all my social media links and things like that. That's just stuff you set up, and you set it all up over here on the left-hand side. And it's what you see is what you get. You get to see what you're making over on the right-hand side and adjust it on the left-hand side. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to the Pages link and open it up. And you'll notice that right here, there's that site that I uploaded through Lightroom. There it is, 001-LRS Online Portfolio. And I can right-click on this gearbox, or just click on this gearbox, and I can edit the page URL, or I can edit the page title. We're going to edit the page title, and I'm going to call this Portfolio Favorites, and hit Enter. And now I've saved that, and if I zoom back out and I click on the Projects area, you'll see that I have a new portfolio called Portfolio Favorites. These are all the different cool projects that I have available for you to view. And if you go to jaredplatt.us now, you'll see that in my Projects area, you'll see Portfolio Favorites. Now, if you're viewing this a little bit later down the road because you purchased this workshop, you will be able to view this indefinitely. And so maybe you're viewing this 2 or 3 months down the road, or maybe a year down the road. You might have to scroll down to find this 2021 portfolio favorites, but it'll be there, and I'll just leave it up for you. So there we are. I've got my portfolio favorites. If I click on it, this is what it's going to look like. Now remember, I am still just looking at my builder. I'm not looking at the actual website. I'm looking at the builder. I haven't published it yet. And I can come in and edit this as well. I can click on this little plus button and I can add all sorts of things into my website. I can add text. I could add a video. Say I want to add a YouTube video in here. I could just add that right there. I can embed something in there. I could even embed one of those cool little Adobe websites that I created earlier right here inside of this. But let's just say that I wanted to add a little text here. I would just click on the text button, say, this is my favorite or I shouldn't say this, I should say these are my favorite portfolio images as of right now. All right, so I've added something to it. I like it. So now I'm just going to update the live site by going to the bottom left-hand corner and click Update Live Site. It's saving that. Soon as it's saved, it's live and I'm done. So I didn't have to do much work to update my website. And I think that's the key to sharing photos, is the idea of making it very, very easy to do. The easier it is for you to update your website and to share your photos, the faster you'll do it, the more seamless it'll be, the more likely you are to share images on a regular basis, because it's easy. If it's hard, you're going to end up going to the next project and going to the next project, and then you'll be backlogged with 50 projects that you haven't shared with the world. And what is photography if you're not sharing it? I can't imagine not sharing photographs on a regular basis. That's what I do. That's the purpose of photography in my mind, is to tell stories and to convince the world of things and to draw people in and help them feel emotions or learn about things that they should know about, or even just be happy by looking at these photos and give you a call and say, hey, those are beautiful photos, thanks for sharing them. But that's the purpose of photography, is to be shared. So I hope that these options have given you a really great way to share your images really fast. And it's all done through Lightroom. And I'm going to give you one more tip as we close, and that is, don't forget that every collection that you put up in the cloud is right here on your cell phone. And so I'm looking right now at the images that I got from selections from the Day family. And so if I want to share one of these, all I have to do is click on it. I'm looking at the image, and I'm just going to simply click on the share button, which is up at the top right-hand corner of the Lightroom application on my phone. And I'm just going to say share to. And then I can share it with anybody in my contact list, or I can even open it up inside of Instagram. And I can write a caption and share that image out to Instagram just like that. And so keep in mind that no matter what it is you are taking pictures of, and it doesn't matter if it's family photography, if it's weddings, if it's portraits, commercial, or it's just travel photography or art, whatever it is you're photographing, you want to share it. So use Lightroom or Lightroom Mobile or Lightroom Classic and take those images and put them into collections, because once they're in those collections, they're up online. They're in the cloud. Especially if you're in Classic, make sure that you share them to the cloud. You have to synchronize them with the cloud. But once you've done that, everything that you have is up in the cloud. And so whenever you have an itch to share an image, it's right there. It's on your phone. I can share an image just like that, super fast, very easy to share. And if I want to share a whole collection or make a website, it's right at my fingertips. So enjoy your newfound freedom of sharing. And don't worry about all the bells and whistles of other websites and things like that. You've got everything you need right there inside of Lightroom and Lightroom Classic and the Lightroom ecosystem. I hope you enjoy it. My name is Jared Platt. If you have any questions, I love to hear from people about what you learned or what you need to know more. You can go to jaredplatt.com and you can reach me there. You can always find me on Instagram. My handle is @JaredPlatt. You can find me on Facebook that way as well. Pretty much anywhere you go on any social media, if you just search Jared Platt, you will find me. And I would be happy to hear from you. I'd love to hear from you. And also, I have lots more education available at Jared Platt. And if you want to learn more about where I educate people, you can do that by going there. Thanks again for showing up. And don't forget that there's lots of bonus material, especially that PDF that shows you some basic information that I've covered here already in a PDF download, as well as some free cool items like presets and things like that right here inside of this class. So I'm glad you showed up, and I hope you enjoy all the rest of the classes here on the Lightroom Summit.